Hello, everybody. Welcome to this special session of Spirit Sessions of View of the Light. And we welcome you. Come on in, like the show, go on YouTube, like and subscribe to our channel and all that. And get ready for a really, really special show. We've pre-recorded it, so we're not live like we usually are, but we will still go through and answer your questions and give you our loving regards. Today we have the return of somebody so special. We've got Darius Barazandeh with us. Woo, woo, woo. And
Hi, everyone.
he's got the answers of what is going on. What really is going on? Some of us have hints. Some of us have no clue. Wherever you're at, this show is going to give you some answers. So, Darius, how are you?
I'm really good. I first want to thank y'all for inviting me back and letting me come on. I wasn't sure if some of the things I said last time would get me an invite back, but apparently they did. So
Absolutely.
it wasn't too bad. But it was a wonderful time. We really unturned a lot of rocks and looked under them, which is good. And I got a lot of great feedback. So hopefully this one goes just as well. And we open up some awareness today.
Absolutely. Well, don't tell anyone, but you're one of our favorites. So.
Oh,
yeah. Well, yeah, curious, like how long have you been broadcasting? Because you've been broadcasting since I started waking up, and that's where I remember seeing you from. So
yeah, it's been about 70 years. And I've been in a little
70,
time warp cloning machine, but yeah, it's been a very long time. Started in the 30s. No, whatever. No, but it's been about 10 years, I think,
Awesome.
from this like standpoint. Yeah, 10 years. So it's been a long time.
10 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
That's awesome. I actually was on a couple of your calls. I actually got through, which was quite amazing to me.
Wow,
A few of your guests. So I remember, dialing at work. Anyway, I had to do that. But I shouldn't say that now.
That's really good, though. I will say, I mean, if I could say real quick, I mean, that's what keeps me doing the show, because what I realize is that people that write in or call in, it could be years ago, could be weeks ago, they end up becoming leaders in their own conscious space, their own voice and truth sharing. And the people that maybe are having that question or that moment where they needed support, or they just needed to hold on to something bigger than the day-to-day reality that we're told is what it is, they end up actually doing amazing things like you are. So it's that makes me feel really good. Like this is organic, like this is going to continue on. You know, even if I never do another show, there's people that are carrying the torch, and y'all definitely are, all of you. So thank you for doing that.
Oh, that's so sweet.
So awesome.
I just wanted you to give before we go into the
the good stuff,
deep stuff.
The deep stuff.
Yeah.
Just tell us a little bit about your heart mission, because I want people to know that you do so much more than, you're a well-rounded individual. That's what I want people to know. Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I try to be. Yeah, I've got, a wife and 2 boys. My boys are 7. So, yeah, they wanted to be out riding bikes tonight, and I was like, no, I got to interview. So they keep me well-rounded. But the family keeps me really well-rounded, and also just kind of being aligned to the singular mission of why I started U-Wealth Revolution was really to empower people to get a fundamental idea, which was that all of our power is within us at the start. Like there is this beginning point of our power, of our knowing, of our soul connection, of our wealth. And that's what U-Wealth really is about. A lot of people think, oh, this is about money. And it's like, no, it's not about that at all. It's wealth, which if you go to the Latin root is well-being, means having that well-being, that joy, that goodness, that health, that everything that is calming to spirit and that is aligned to the natural organic flow of the body, the divine flow of the body. And all of that emanates from us first. And so that's why U is in front of wealth, to redefine all of this. And when I started, the show or the ideas, it was right after 2008, 2009, and some of that economic collapse, the one we had before this one. And people had all of this idea of wealth tied up into sort of the stock market and all that. And it was like, no, we need a new definition, because that can go in a moment's notice, as we found out now 2 times. So that's where it starts from. And what I'm proud of is that we don't associate with any particular spiritual teaching. I'm not associated with, oh, I follow this train of thought or that train of thought. I really look at like, what is empowering to the individual? What is empowering to human sovereignty? What is empowering to truth? And so that's really led us to just say, you know what, we're gonna do our best to follow truth, and we're gonna do our best to help expand people to be in their own power, to not follow a guru or follow a person. And we're gonna bring people from everywhere that they believe maybe they've found that. Now, maybe some have, some haven't. Maybe it works for some person, doesn't. That's been our singular mission. And I find now that that's kind of the wave and path, at least that I see Ascension going, which is aligning to that individual truth that we all have inside of us.
Yeah, absolutely. Beautiful.
So,
Yeah.
Teresa, you look like you wanted to jump in there, because I could see you getting really excited. So, have you got
questions come and go? They're gone now.
Oh, okay. Okay. So you just were talking. I posted a video of yours just recently about what the heck is going on, and that's why we titled our segment this, because from your perspective, what the heck is going on here? What are you getting from all the people that you've been contacting with, and your own intuition? What do you think is
What's
going on?
behind what mainstream media is telling us?
Right. Let's push that veil, huh?
That's a loaded question, right? There's a lot there. I'm going to first start out by saying I don't know. I mean, I'm just going to flat out say I don't know. And the great thing is nobody truly knows, because we're all filtering reality from our own perception. So if you're following a lot of people, they're like, oh, I have the answer, or I got the drop, or I have the inside thing. You know, a lot of those people are wrong. A lot of those people have identity and personality wrapped up in something being right, or creating like a enemy or a straw man to go against. Or, you know, there's all of these sort of personality complexes wrapped into it. So to take my whole personality out of it is, and I am not the guy with the crystal ball. I do not even know. But there's certain energies that I feel are becoming more prevalent right now that we can look at and say, okay, I see sort of these energetic currents that are right now in the matrix or in the system. And this is giving me clues as to maybe what the future choice and timelines might dictate. So to answer your question, I don't know. I don't think anyone knows. Follow your own knowing, and maybe we'll give you some paths that you can kind of plug into today to give you some ideas. How's that sound?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Okay, good.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're all on the same page. It's just like, you know, we're living in the strangest time. You know, it's like a sci-fi movie, really. Like we woke up and the world just went upside down, and it's not that things are happening that, you know, haven't been happening. It's just that we're being shown what's happening. You know, we're being awoken to the truth of what's happening. So little by little, we're getting more information, you know, and we're helping others to wake up. And it's just, you know, it's going to get weirder before it gets, you know, steady. So
yeah, I think you're right. And I think a lot of the stuff that's been happening, like you said, is happening behind the surface. So like, you know, me and my wife were talking, like, I can't believe that so many people will just sort of give up, like, you know, their choice so easily for something that doesn't really look, at least right now, to be like a real, like, horrific thing that you cannot recover from. It's just, it's mind-blowing to me. But you have to understand, like you said, all of that's been under the surface. People have been conditioned to sort of follow what's told to them by authorities for a very long time. So all of that was there. We're just starting to see it. And then now, you know, we're going to see how that unfolds. And it's going to be an interesting journey. I'll sort of say one thing about this, which is I think that the first way I looked at this in that video was trying to really say, okay, we're in this unprecedented earth shift. And everyone's been talking about this. People have been talking about it for ages. You know, that was what 2012 was about. That's what some of that prophecy was about. But what is actually going to happen? Well, maybe we're going to shift out of certain belief systems that were not really serving us, or that only serve the 3D system, we might move into something else, right? So that's kind of the first place I started looking at this. Is like, okay, we're gonna have, some things are gonna have to break down for us to actually move into 5D. Because if the matrix doesn't change, and that still is the control system or the predominant collective, then how do you move to 5D? How do you have a different experience of Earth if we're still holding on to all that? So that has to get stressed, essentially, for us to break through that.
Absolutely. I think the thing that seems to be kind of echoing the loudest through all this is that people need to start making decisions, stop letting others make decisions for them. They're always waiting for somebody to tell them what to do, how to handle it, you know, and this is really the time where we have to be like, this is our time to be empowered, our time to do what's right for us, and to truly follow our intuition. You know, we're not going through this for nothing. This is important, you know, so it's really about learning to make your own decisions and stop relying on everybody else's influence to guide you.
Yeah, and that's why I kind of said, like, I don't have the answer, so don't rely on me, guys. You know, like feel into this, and I could be totally wrong, and then say, oh yeah, that guy, you know, he's full of it, or he's got some ideas, or he's got a way of looking at it. But if we look at it's like a funnel, right? So 5D being up here at some level, a fifth density, and then we have a funnel, and wider down below we have 3D. So you have 6 major systems, right? You have like your military industrial complex, you have your financial system, money system, you have pharmaceuticals, you have media, TV, and then you have like your politician leaders, all of these people, right? So these 6 control systems, or systems that form the basis of most of our reality, for those to move through to this funnel into 5D, they're going to get stressed. And this is what I said in the video. If you took a Model T Ford from 1902 and you put a bigger engine in it and you geared it up to go 100 miles an hour, the systems on that car would eventually vibrate so much that it would fall apart, right? It couldn't do it. So what we're seeing now is, I think, the initial impetus to create that higher vibration fractionalization of these systems. And so all of these systems are getting stressed because people are starting to question them. They're questioning when there's certain things out there that look like they could help this COVID-19, and then they're not being shared openly in the media. Or you have doctors and people that are trained professionals, they're not being allowed to share. They're getting banned on social media. So all these things are causing people to question these systems more and more, and those are cracks. Those cracks are going to be useful because they're going to let those systems that aren't serving begin to fall away, change, adapt, so that now we can move. Not everything goes into 5D. I mean, it's a funnel. If everything was going to go into 5D, then nothing would have to change, right? So I think that's the first thing that's happening, is the necessary tension on these systems is starting to come about.
People, I think people, maybe even regular, normal, like not normal, but you know what I mean, normal. My husband is asking, like,
he's asking questions. Exactly.
He said, like, why? Why is this happening? He says, this does not make any logical sense when you look at the statistics. If we really question the statistics, what's the driving force behind this? And that's the questioning. Like, what's the driving force behind this all? Because logically, it doesn't make a lot of sense. More people die every day from AIDS.
Yeah.
More people die from rabies every day.
Hunger, starving.
Oh, hunger.
Like, right.
Hunger.
That's a great one.
Many more. Like,
and it's fixable.
Yeah, we could have used all this
treatable.
money, perhaps could have used a lot of this money to feed hungry people, or create ways to get food to them, and transportation lines, or a myriad of other conditions. So what's the deal? Like, what's going on? So I agree. And like, you know, I said this in our UWealth community. I told y'all privately that, like, there's so many people questioning reality that our board looks completely different than it did 3 years ago. 3 years ago, it was like, oh, love, light, you know, I'm going to be in my little beautiful place of flowers and beautiful memes. And now people are like, I'm questioning this, I'm questioning that, I'm questioning, and people are getting into hard truths and really questioning things. So I think it's causing people, spiritual, non-spiritual, just to say, hey, what really is going on, and what do we do about it? So yeah,
one of your memes that showed up on your board, and I really liked it. I thought it's not an attacking one; it's just common sense. There was a picture of masking in a park, and then the little sideboard was, "What the heck are you masking for? You're outside in the fresh air. Take off your stupid mask." Like, why would you wear it out here? That doesn't make any sense. And the other thing that my husband and I were just chatting about, the masks. They may have an unintentional consequence for these cameras for everybody, because nobody can identify you when you have a mask over your face, especially, like
when everybody has a mask, right?
When everybody has a mask over their face.
Yeah, it's weird. The other thing is, it feels like very chilling to speech, because when you have a mask, it's hard to hear you. It's hard to see your expressions. When you're walking down the street, you just see somebody's like just their eyes, and the smile, the warmth, whether you're mad or you're smiling, it's like you see that in the face and the nose and the lines. And it's just, people become so sort of binary. You can't really see anything there. It's like they're just there, right? I don't know how to explain it, like a non-playable character or something. Like there's just nothing there. Right. So it's really creating this.
It's a loss of identity.
It's a loss of identity and differentiation. Yeah.
It's a girl at the local Walmart cashier. She was saying to me that she's learning how to read people's eyes. Because, now it's a new form of body language that we haven't paid attention to before. So we're learning to be more sensitive to body language in a whole new way, and that I found really interesting. Yeah.
What's
telepathy
that?
will be next. Yeah.
Telepathy will be next.
Right.
Yeah. We're just beating to people.
Yeah. I said this in the video. I think it's a great context to look at, which is, we've got two different models of reality, I think, and timelines. So we have service to self, and we have people on the planet that are 51% service or more service to self, and then we have service to others. Right. And this comes from the Law of One and some of the Dolores Cannon stuff, that if we are service to others more, mostly like 51% service to others, we will ascend. We will move into this new earth paradigm. And so what we're seeing in the Great Awakening, that I call it, which is just this big awakening that's happening everywhere, is you're able to see now, what are the people, what are the organizations, what are the governance structures in the different states that are in service to self. And so if, let's say, a month and a half ago, the pandemic, or the situation, we want to call it, really bad, COVID-19, big risk, and they are very, very serious safety measures need to be done. Okay, the local governments do it, state government does it, and you flatten the curve, you do all that stuff, great. But at some point, that service to others, which is we want to protect the welfare of the public, is now moving into a little more of the service to self, where it's like, okay, I get more power, I can control people more, I can put in these draconian measures, and I'm going to be able to, control the citizenry. I'm going to be able to maybe get more federal funding because I can say there's more cases, and, I control certain bits of information, and I'm getting a benefit. Or maybe we want to do mail-in voting eventually. And so we want to control that up until the election. So then we can control sort of the movement of the planet from whatever it is now to where we want it to go. So what I think people are getting to see, and what we want to watch, is where is it in all of these different structures, the media, political structures, local governance, state governance, federal governance, that these individuals have started maybe with service to others, but now they've moved into service to self. And that's really the big timeline shift that's happening. The energy of those that are service to self, it's getting pulled out from under them. Like, people are starting to see that this is a big eye opener, and when we see more of that, we need to then decide, what do we do? Do we let that continue, or do we say, you know what? I need to take some action at the local level. I need to take some action at the state level. I need to take some action at the federal level.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think the thing that really is inspiring is that the amount of people speaking out now is larger than the amount of people that can be silenced. In the past, they've been silenced, and now they can't be. There's so many coming out and saying something's not right. Why are they putting COVID-19 down for everybody's death? You know, what happened to everything else that we were, you know, dying from for so long? Like,
yeah, and if you look at
It's a
the data,
miracle. We're not
the
dying
flu
from
death,
anything else now.
yeah,
the flu deaths that I looked at data that was back in March, and the flu deaths for that same period when the COVID deaths were way up, the flu deaths were down like nearly exactly the same amount as the COVID deaths went up. So what you're hearing now from doctors and whistleblowers that unfortunately are getting censored is that they were taking perhaps some of these flu deaths and now they're getting relabeled as COVID deaths. Now, again, I mean, we've got to really dig into the research. There's a lot of people doing that research. I'm not the guy that wants to get into all that research. I'm looking at the bigger energetics of this and saying, yeah, we need to ask questions. We need to figure out what's really going on. And of course, there's incentives to that, you know, that you're going to get more money federally as a hospital if that happens. So all of this is coming to the public eye. And I think that's what's important is we're becoming aware. And awareness is like that first step where we've got to start to actively do what's called anchoring in the ascension or activating the ascension. We've got to bring it in by being aware of what's going on and questioning, which y'all have said, of course, very important.
Yeah. And it starts with self-awareness, you know, you've got to be self-aware to be able to be aware of what's going on around you as well, to be truly aware, you know. It's really about the microcosm and the macrocosm. And, you know, so it's our job to be self-aware so we can recognize when we're like, why is that bothering me so much? Maybe I should look into it, you know.
I agree completely. Yeah. Absolutely.
I remember, and getting rid of the fear. I mean,
I'm going to talk about
I have no doubt that COVID-19 is real. I have no doubt that people are dying from it.
And it's a real thing. Yeah, it's a real thing.
It's a real thing. Is it as big as they say? Well, it's going to have to be now, right? No matter what, it's going to have to be now because whatever. So because we've stopped the world for it, so it has to be as big as it is, and because nobody's going to take that back. But I remember I was reading one of my sister's posts. She was terrified. She had her mask and her gloves on. She went into a store. I'm thinking, like, if you're that terrified, why don't you stay at home? And she said, I was more terrified than going to Thailand. And I'm thinking, you're an idiot. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, like, statistically, you had more chance of getting bumped off in Thailand than you do of picking up COVID-19 in Dollarama. Let's be sensible about this. I mean, we take our precautions. We certainly don't want to give it to anybody or get it back, you know, from anybody. But we shouldn't be terrified to go outside and breathe fresh air. We shouldn't be terrified to, you know, do normal activities that we would do anyways.
Or to run to a friend and help her up when she falls down. I mean, now it's like, ooh, I don't know if you got COVID. No, you know, let's get back to where we could just love each other again.
Thank you, media, for that. I mean, let's just say highly contagious is not something they should be throwing around if they don't want to cause a panic. They wanted to cause a panic.
Yeah, you know? and today I came home and my wife had read an article that cited the CDC where they said it was no less contagious than the measles. That the measles were more contagious than this, which was a redaction in essence, or a revision from their earlier estimates. And I said, well, honey, this strange thing, and I'm not saying this happens all the time, but this is a trend to watch if you're trying to really question reality, is that they start with a story or footage or media that's terrifying, right? So we saw this in China. It was like, oh my God, they're pulling people from their homes. People are dropping like flies. And we all saw this for like 2, 3, 4 weeks. And we were just like, wow, what's happening? And we were fed all of this. And then we started to get fearful. And then we saw a lot of data come in. The data, you know, people are going to parse through it. They're going to see how accurate it was. Where was it maybe not as accurate? Where was it flawed? Which we're seeing now that they've said some of the models that were put out by WHO and people like Fauci perhaps were flawed. They were not accurate. They overestimated. That's where they were getting like the 1 million, 2 million deaths and all of this stuff. So we were dealing with this data and these images that were anchoring in a way that we believed this was going to be. And now that it's not that bad, you see, as you said, these redactions, these changes in the data, And then they'll, be like sort of, in the last page of the newspaper, there'll be the little tiny story at the end of the nightly news, or they won't even make it to the news. And that's what we have to watch for. It's a very similar type of pattern. Is you create a huge problem, create a lot of fear, a lot of panic, people overreact, and then you formulate a solution that tends to deprive liberty, deprive sovereignty. Sometimes might be necessary. I mean, they are things with pandemics, you got to be careful. But then it's like they've gotten people accustomed to doing that. And that's my worry, where they're willing to just give it up easier and easier each time. And then we look at it years later and we're like, well, was that actual real data that we could trust? Did somebody parse through that data? Did somebody really look at this and question it? And did we have good data to begin with?
Right.
And chances are that may never be done, unfortunately, or it'll just wind up, at the tail end of some legislation or commission, and we'll never hear about it. And that's where we lose our sovereignty. So it's a very challenging situation.
It is. And it's all about what agenda is it feeding? That's
what
we're looking at.
And that's what we got to keep questioning. That's what we got to keep questioning.
Yeah.
Where does the money go? Where's the money trail? I always say, follow the money trail, and you'll find out whose agenda is feeding.
The power, right? Because at a certain point, a lot of these people that have a lot of money, they want power, or there's a deeper agenda to do something on the planet to create change or some sort of, shift on the planet. And I've heard it from all different people, right? So we could take it from the ascension timeline, that there's people believe that we're going to ascend, and there's so much high vibration energy hitting the earth and people that it's changing our DNA, and that we're going to raise in our consciousness and in our vibration. And they are some people that believe, and I'm getting out of here though, there's some people believe that some of the people that are in power are not totally human DNA, and they can't actually function or exist at a super high vibration, so that when we get super high, like, they're not going to be able to function in the planet. It's going to become very hard for them just because of the energetics. And right. You hear this a lot with like the Anunnaki or the Draconians. You hear about this if you look at all of that, when the earth gets to a certain point, they literally are not going to be able to be even at the higher fourth dimension. These non-physical beings, they won't be able to exist because the vibration will be too high. So there's that side of it, that these mass events done at a certain time can lower the vibration of the planet. They can also usher in other ways to lower the vibration of the planet, which could be like, the things that we all don't want, which could be certain drugs, vaccines, tracking, all of that. I mean, you can see where it's all very easy now. You can see the Lego pieces fitting together like perfectly. And it's like, yeah, we've been talking about this for years. They just need the right crisis to bring it all into play. Mm-hmm. So, it's definitely can be kind of a little troubling picture for people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think, even looking at the part where a computer nerd has had so much influence in the medical area, been taken seriously, how the hell did that happen? Like, really? Where is that expertise that is so relevant in the medical world that they're taking his, and feeding it to us like it's gospel?
Sorry.
No, I mean, really, like, these are the things that are slipping past a lot of people. And now they're starting to say, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. And that's good. That's important. When we look at every possible timeline for this, we get to choose what timeline we want to be on with it. We get to choose how we want to contribute our energy to it. I don't want some computer nerd telling me how to take care of myself medically or any other way, actually. If he wants to fix my computer, have at it. But
well, and what's interesting is
if you've ever owned an iPhone, you'll know how many bugs there are in it.
Right. Yeah.
Sorry.
And you have to
I don't want to be the first million.
You want to be the what?
I don't want to be one of the first million. No. Thank you.
Well, look at it. So why would and it's just a question, I'm not accusing, but I'm saying, why would somebody who was involved heavily in the computer industry be interested in the vaccination industry, right? There's no corollary there. There's nothing other than the fact that, and this is just, think about it, a vaccine is a very effective way through a shot to deliver like a nano device that's trackable to an ID that could then be brought into some sort of, computer organization system, trackable world grid that would very much resemble like the operating system of a computer or a giant database, right?
Exactly.
And that's where it's like, oh, wait a minute, that could very, and you do enough research on ID 2020, not to scare people again, because we're going to show you how to get out of the fear. I want to leave people in a better place, but these are the things you just want to ask the question about. Don't trust somebody because you've seen them on TV or you've seen an actor on Hollywood doing it. A lot of these people are reading scripts. They read scripts for a living. They have to keep reading scripts for a living, and maybe they don't even really know what they're reading or what the deeper ramifications of it is and are. They just know, if I don't do this, I'm not going to have a job. So, I mean, send love to them too, some of them, because they don't even really know. They're just like, oh, okay, oh, this is, and and many of them have emotional abuse. They have trauma. They come from homes where they were pushed to do things that maybe weren't just a normal childhood, so there can be abuse. I mean, look at Harvey Weinstein. What happened to him? How many people did he abuse that are now actresses out there? So there's a lot of hurt root energy from a lot of these people who are pretty much at times guiding the world, and we have to say, we're not going to be mad at them. We're also going to look at them as some of them are victims too, writing out karma that is not the ideal path of light. And some of them, I was saying this to someone today, that by us standing up, waking up, being in our power, claiming our sovereignty, we can get them off of that karmic train as well. Because if the plans for whatever it is that is decreasing human sovereignty fail, then those people get to be set free too. They don't have to do this anymore. A lot of people want to get out of it. A lot of these people don't want to do this. They don't want to be a part of this. They get it, but they're just sort of like, this is trapped. This is my I'm drafted in. This is what we've done. This is what my family's been involved in. Bill Gates' father, if you look him up, he was involved in eugenics. There's a lot of research on that. He was very high up. He's look him up. So,
that's
I mean, it's ancestral stuff. Yeah. I mean, we're all doing that. We're all healing ancestral stuff, So of course theirs is going to be a little bit louder because it's been a little bit more deeply embedded in certain ways, but affecting the collective in a bigger way. But yeah, we're all doing that. I mean, so if you look at that, that's sharing in the collective healing. It may be uncomfortable. It may look like a shitstorm, but we're doing it.
Our obligation, like the best thing we can do for them too, and I don't want to say us versus them. I know a lot of people like, oh, don't, but for whoever's involved in the service to self energy grid, and we are in the service to others energy grid, even if we're 51%, the best thing we can do for the service to self energy grid is for us to bring in our service to others love energy and awaken, so they can either get off the boat or continue on that path, and then whatever happens, but we allow them to become free. And that's where we have to take the obligation to stand up. They're waiting for us to stand up. I remember I was telling a friend today, I was like, before I married my wife Sherry, we have the 2 boys, but I was married before, and I wasn't happy. I was not connected. I was in a city I didn't like to live in. I was doing something I didn't like to do. I was an attorney. I wasn't happy. And my wife at the time pretty much was like, I know you're not happy. I'm not happy. Here's the divorce. The papers are already signed. I've already been to the lawyer. There's not a damn thing you can do. It's over. And I was like, oh, I'll make it work. I'll stick. I'll do whatever I can. I was the guy that was like, I'm going to be faithful even if I'm miserable. And she set me free. And I say that was one of the greatest gifts anybody ever gave me. And so I send her love for that. Same thing here.
Absolutely.
We have to wake up so we can set everybody free. So all the cognitive dissonance, well, that's not true. I'm not even going to try that on as true, is keeping all of these players locked into this game that honestly, a lot of them, none of us want to be in it anymore. So it's time to just say, all right, let's just wake up. It's time.
Yeah, definitely. I think the thing, we are creatures that we have to get really uncomfortable to change. It's just the nature of how we are. If we don't get really uncomfortable, we're fine. Let's just keep it this way. This is what we know. It's normal. Screw normal. Like, there is no normal anymore. You know, like, we have to
Normal
accept
setting
that
on the dishwasher.
right. Change is the only constant, you know, and we have to accept now that fear of the unknown is actually going to be less now than fear of what's happening, what we know is happening, you know, and let's just transmute all of that and just say, okay, acceptance of the unknown, accept what we know right now, and trust that the acceptance of the unknown means that we get to create more beautiful things. We get to align with the things that we really want. And this is our time to really step into that. There's no more need for fear. You know, we've been taught to fear the unknown, but that's not something that we need to vibe with.
Yeah, I agree 100%. 100%. Yes. Yeah. So.
And you were talking about sovereignty, and you had a little. I love your what do they call your statements?
Oh yeah, they're fun.
Yeah, I added that to my other ones of yours.
Can you share one with our audience, because even though this is going to be coming up in June, it's a great one. So
who knows what's going to happen the next 2 weeks?
We're going to still need the sovereignty.
Really.
We're gonna need it. So I want to talk about the 4 steps, because I heard one gal you need to get on this show is Magenta Pixie.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I was listening to her today.
Yeah.
And I heard her 3 steps, and I had been doing the revocation statements for a while, and I was like, oh great, this is tying that in. I knew there was a reason for that. And so I was like, okay, I want to talk about sort of my 3 steps, 4 steps, and that's kind of where that video came in. So the big thing I see with a lot of people in spiritual communities, not everybody, but there's a lot of folks that they don't want to know about anything that's not, you know, just the pure love light stuff. And there's a lot of teachers that feel this way. I've had teachers not want to get on my show because they're like, sometimes you bring up things that aren't, you know, just pure love light. You're drawing that to you and all that. I'll get into the law of attraction later. But the first thing is, like, we may be in a little bit of fear when we are having things change in the world. And that is normal. Like, we cannot run from fear. If we run from fear, then we're controlled, right? So spiritual beings, like, if you have fear, dark, something like dirty in your house, you can't close the door and meditate on everything being clean. And then, you know, you close the door to the kitchen and there was roaches in there and garbage, and meditate for a month, it's going to be clean, and then open the door and it's going to be clean. It's just, we're not that there yet, right? So you cannot escape things because of fear. And a lot of times, like, I think in spiritual communities, there's like this spiritual bypass. I'm not going to look at that because I'm going to draw it to me. And I tell people, I'm like, I get that, right? When I was an attorney, I would take different cases. I was a real estate lawyer. There was times people wouldn't pay certain things, taxes, rent. And sometimes it was fraud in real estate deals and contracts. I had to go and look at the fraudulent activities. I had to see what was going on. I had to document it. I had to look at bank records. I had to look at transactions. I had to look at depositions. Not once did I become a fraudulent person or commit fraud myself, because I was focusing on these actions so I could bring to light to a higher court of order where there was a discrepancy that was not in alignment with the law or divine, you know, in this case, the law of the state. So this idea that if I see anything that's not love light, I'm going to become bad is it really keeps us in a state of fear to really look at what's there. And if you've got something in your house that doesn't smell right, maybe a rotting banana peel or something, and you don't want to pull up the rug to see what's under there that smells so bad, it's going to linger. So as a society, what's happening is we're starting to need to now look under the rug, look in those dark places, shine the light of truth on what's going on. So we got to get out of fear, and then we want to get into awareness. And that's where the light of truth comes in. Like, be aware of what's happening. Be aware of all sides. You don't need to take on one ideology. Look at it from a balanced perspective. Look at everybody saying this is one way. Look at everybody looking at it the other way. And then balance and be in balance. And once you're in balance, feel into your heart. Does this make sense? Do I want this? Okay, it seems like, yes, the vaccine would have some benefits, but there might be some detriments. Now, with all of that in the head, equalize your brain and say, what do I really feel in my heart? What's right for me? And, so that would be step 2, is be aware. You may go into fear at first, become aware, begin to move out of fear, because, we fear what we don't know, be aware of the environment. And then we have to choose. And when you choose, you literally just say, this is what I want. This is what I choose. And this is where the revocation statement comes in, because when you choose, you have to choose to move into a new timeline, a new set of energetics. You have to unplug from that old model. And in choosing, I'll read the revocation statement, but after you choose, the next thing to do, take action in love. Take action. Yeah, take action. Do it in love. You can go protest, but you can do it in love.
That's right.
You can tell somebody off in love. I told this guy, I was at Home Depot, I had a mask on, and he had a mask on, and I guess I got too close to him by accident, and he got really upset, and he was like, you better back up. And I was like, oh, what's wrong? He's like, you're getting too close. I'm going to hurt you. You're going to get hurt. And I was like, why? Do you have COVID-19? Are you going to get me infected, or are you threatening physical harm? And he was like, you're going to get hurt. I was like, bro, you got the wrong guy, man. I was like, you don't even want to play that game with me. And then he was like, oh. And I was like, hey, but I want to tell you one more thing. I love you. And I love the inner child that's scared. I love you. It's going to be okay, bro. And I was like, you know what? Do no harm, as Jordan Sather says. Take no shit. I was like, don't mess with me. I'm not the guy for that. And I love you. So we can take action. We can protest in love. We can share messages in love. Right. We can do a lot of things. We can write our congressmen. We can write our congresswomen. We can write our attorney general. They're now taking things where they want to know in different states. There's a hotline. Are civil liberties being trampled on in different states? We should be filling that thing up. We can do a lot of things in love. And because we're doing it, doesn't mean that we are in fear. Doesn't mean we are condoning it or we want more of it. It just means we are choosing the world we want to live in, and we're grounding those actions in love. And that's perfectly okay. Perfectly okay. We can't, as spiritual beings, be separate from the world anymore. We can't be like, oh, I'm just going to go to my seminar and be in my ashram and sit there and meditate. I've told this to people, what did Jesus do when the bankers and the money changers were in the temple? He turned over the tables. Yeah, he ran them out. And it's like, we can do that in love, run them out, but I love you. I love you. I'm not going to hurt you, but I love you, So yeah, I think those are, I'll read the 4 steps again, if that helps people. It's in the video that I did. And it's pretty much like, no, you're going to be in fear. When you really start looking at new truths, you're going to get fearful. Get in awareness of what's going on, see all sides, and then revoke consent, make a choice, and then revoke consent, and then take an action in love. Because if we don't act, we're more fearful, right? I mean, y'all doing this show is an action. Me doing my show is an action. Me sharing a meme is an action. We can act in love. So I want to read the revocation statement, because one of the things that these energies feed on is a lot of psychic energy, right? So we may not realize, and I mean, for the people that are about, I don't want to know anything about it. The challenge is that unconsciously we have made connections to these systems. We've made connections to these grids. We've made connections to many of these people. We've used Bill Gates's products. We've used Windows, right? For years, I used it for 20 years. It's a great product for the most part. So we've assented to so much of these things infiltrating our lives. We have to energetically at some point cut the cord and choose our new reality. So here's the statement, and I'll send it to y'all. But it's very simple. And it goes something like this. I revoke consent across all time and space, express or implied, for any agenda, manipulation, any service to self, program, influence, or energy that does not align to my divine rights as a sovereign free being, and so it is.
So it is. Simple.
And
Nice.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
every time I read that, all the little pent-up energetic leaks that I feel through the day when I hear news or I see things that just feel like they're little holes that are just like if you poke holes in a bucket of water and you're seeing as water like spout out, it all seals up. And I'm like, that's right, I'm a free sovereign being. I pull my energy back. Or as Cameron Day, who did a really great video, you should have Cameron Day on. He did a video, I'll have to send it to y'all, really great guy. He called it the energy refund that he used to do on his Ascension website. And the energetic refund is taking back all the energy that you've given to different people, places, structures, and the reclamation of all of your energy field.
That's
right?
really cool.
So
Yeah, I'm
once you do that, it's like, okay, now what action? Yeah, what action am I going to take in love?
Yeah. That brings us to the law of attraction, because where we put our energy, right? That's what we've been taught. Where we put our energy is where we, what grows. So how is it, we've been taught a certain way, whatever you focus is going to be what you attract. And that's, your life just becomes that. But we know that's not the truth now. So what is it that you want to share about the law of attraction?
You want me to slay the law of attraction? Well, I think the law of attraction is a law, right? It's something that works. We've all used it. We've used the law of attraction. I've used it. I've done the whole thing where I focus on something and I can slowly begin to manifest it. Our attention is very powerful. I'm going to give credit to Ben and Rob, the Edge of Wonder. Great guys. I saw their video on it and started researching it more and more. And I started also listening to a gentleman named Hans Wilhelm, another guy y'all should have on the show. And one of the things that I was kind of struck with in our communities from people is they'll say things like, I had a dialogue with another gentleman who I think is a great guy, but we had this long dialogue. And I had used the word evil in a post on something. And he said, well, there is no evil. And I said, okay, what do you mean? And so we had this long dialogue. And in his way, or at least the way that I was interpreting it, is that, okay, if we go up higher and higher, we're all one, right? So there's no evil. We're all one. We're all love. We're all one. And yes, that's true. And that's coming from someone I've had the experiences where I went out of my body. I've had near-death experiences. I've gone into what might have been the 7th or 8th dimension. I know, and I felt that viscerally. I've been in the blue zone where everything is merged and my family was part of me, everything. But we are not in the blue zone, guys, on Earth, right? We are in 3D. So in 3D, the nature or third density is that you have duality, because a classroom, we're here to learn. And so therefore we're all playing a different role. Even parts of us are playing a role. There might be a part of me that's the worst guy in the world, right? There may be a soul fragment of mine is playing the role of this horrible person trying to do bad things to everybody. I don't know. Right. But the nature of it is that there is duality so that we can learn. And that is why there is evil. And so what you get I feel when you have people say, I don't want to address, I don't want to know about that. The real reason is they believe that you're going to draw that into you. You're going to attract that. You're going to have that. So because we don't want to think about that or acknowledge it, it doesn't exist. Right? And that's where the law of attraction kind of goes too far, because then to me, it can create the spiritual being that doesn't want to engage in the world and see the world. So they sort of disconnect and say, well, it's all love. I only want to focus on love and light. Right. Well, if unconsciously you have fears, you have unresolved issues, you're attracting that anyway, because your unconscious mind, and I know because I'm a hypnotist, your unconscious mind is running 99% of your life anyway. So even though you're thinking for a few hours a day, if you really can, about abundance, unconsciously so strange thing. So so I'll let y'all share whatever comments you have on that, and then we'll keep going on this.
Yeah, really. I mean, I saw a video that Joe Vitale, who was on The Secret, he was part of the original cast of The Secret, and he talked about how, the law of attraction, the way it was taught, was a huge disservice to humanity because life happens. Life happens. You can't avoid life. We're here to have a human experience. That is a part of our soul mission, is to have a human experience. You can't avoid it. You have to experience the duality. You have to experience challenging things. You can't avoid them just because you're focusing on love and light, So I thought that was really profound and powerful where he started to come out and talk about that more because it's really needed. Like, we can't just walk around and put our heads in the sand every time something looks, a different way than what we expect or hope or want. It's about us having that human experience, about us facing, reality for what it is, accepting what is, and then doing something, in the direction that we want to move.
Yeah, I agree.
And then about our subconscious and our consciousness, it's like the iceberg. The tip is what we know, but what's underneath is what we are avoiding or not knowing or just have no idea about. I've heard it compared to consciously. What we know is if you put your feet together and draw a circle around your feet, that is our awareness. Now, you take that chalk and go 36 miles out and draw that all around you. That's how much subconscious and unconsciousness we have.
Nice.
There's a lot.
And then I mean, this can get really trippy, but you know that the gateway to the superconscious is through the subconscious. So that's why we get ideas from our higher self and knowing in the moments that we're not looking for the ideas. That's why we get the insights, the intuition when we're not trying to figure out the problem, because the gateway through which higher self can communicate is not through the critical faculty, because that's usually gummed up with day-to-day thoughts and things like that and belief systems. It's through the unconscious. So it does percolate up. And it's a funny story. I don't necessarily like Thomas Edison because of what he did to Tesla and how they tried to discredit him in the wars that they had over the different electrical systems, AC versus DC. But Edison, when he was trying to figure out a problem, he knew this. He was at some level, I think, connected to some of the Freemasonry and stuff like that. He knew how the higher dimensional worlds worked, at least from whatever ways they were trying to manipulate him, because these people are very spiritual, but they just use the energies of spirit to do things that create a different world than maybe we want. So they're very spiritual. They just are using stuff for maybe the darker purposes. But what he would do was, when trying to figure out an idea, he would have a giant ball bearing, like from a big piece of heavy industrial equipment. He would hold it in his hand, and he would sit in a chair. And as he was trying, he would think about a problem. He was trying to figure out, and then he would just doze off. And right when he was about to doze off, his hand would open, the ball bearing would fall, and it would land in this big metal dish, and then it would clang, and he'd wake up. And he would find the problem right in that gap between awaking and dozing off. It's called the hypnagogic state. Yeah. And it's a state where you sort of open the doorways of infinite consciousness, even just for a moment, and carrying that question in his mind, and then opening that door, the answer would come in from divine. And so that's how higher awareness speaks to us. So we have all of that stuff going on. So to think that you're just this tiny thing that I'm thinking about, just looking at and so the point is, if I see something in the world I don't like and I'm reading a bad news story, to think that that's just going to make my life go downhill, not so much. It'd be like me saying, well, if I take this case and I try this person that did something bad and fraudulently did something to someone else, I'm going to become fraudulent because I'm going to spend 2 hours a day looking at it. No, deep down, I've got values and morals and an upbringing that taught me right from wrong. And that's just not going to happen. So it's the same thing. Like, oh, I saw this bad meme about something, so now, you've thrown off my attraction. Not true. So, what I thought was interesting, Ben and Rob did this story on the law of attraction. I thought was great. And they went into it and they asked a really simple question. And anybody that's really big on the law of attraction, or the people that are like, oh, just focus on love and light, it'll be fine and whatever, is ask the question, is the law of attraction, does it supersede karma? And that was one of the questions they asked. very wise guys. They said, what about karma? And then they got into some really interesting things, because karma actually, I believe, is a very powerful law. It's a very powerful sort of balancing system in the universe. And some of the earliest times that the law of attraction was ever actually published in any sort of document was by a lady named Elena Blavatsky. And Elena Blavatsky, she actually published a little newspaper. And you know the name of the newspaper? Lucifer. That was literally the name of the newspaper. It was a little like newsletter printed at the turn of the day called Lucifer. So she was involved in a lot of the secret societies, and she was parts of some of these groups. And so was a guy named Charles Hennell, who you probably hear about. He had some books on that stuff. And so one of the reasons the law of attraction was, I think, really popular with these groups that dated back to the Freemasons and the Rastafarians, or I don't know who they were, but
Rosicrucians.
Thank you, Rosicrucians, was because they had sort of sidestepped the church. So if you look at it, like, there wasn't really like pure spirituality. There was like the Catholic Church. It was like all controlling, right? And do this, or you're going to go to hell. And then there were these Knights Templar that went to all these other places like Rome and Asia and all these ancient societies. And they learned all of this mysticism. And they didn't really know what to do with the mysticism, because at the time it was either the Catholic Church and some of those edicts and that very strong control system, or there was all this like mysticism and freedom. So they formed these secretive groups to try to figure out, like, okay, what do we do with this? Because if we go back to the Catholic Church and talk about any of this, we'll be killed, right?
Right.
So they created these secret societies. That's where you have the idea of the Illuminati and all of that. But where I think they went wrong, or when they went into a direction that wasn't freeing, was that they thought that the path where they could empower most of this was through Luciferianism, was the idea that Lucifer was kicked out of heaven. So naturally, because the church is controlling, that must be our guy, Lucifer, because, we don't want that control, because we've learned all of this stuff on our crusades and other things that just doesn't make sense. So they went like the god of the earth to them was Lucifer. And so we follow Luciferianism, which is you delight in all of the earthly sort of indulgences, right? And that your actions do not have consequence. That what you're thinking about in the moment is going to be the only thing that controls whether or not you get it. That this law of attraction is the singular force in the universe, that you can have whatever you want without ramification just by focusing on it. And if you focus on something bad, well, that's why you got it. It's not karma. It's not because you needed to do work on yourself or you needed to go deeper and heal something. It's none of that. It's because you focused on it. So it's really a way to sidestep sort of our greater spiritual purpose. Now, that's Elena Blavatsky was the first one that cited that. And then from there, we had the New Age movement and the New Thought movement all came from that, who was a known Satanist. And again, I'm not saying law of attraction hasn't helped people. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying it's not the only law. So in a way, when we're dealing with this systemic change on the planet, and we're looking at all this, and we're like, what do we do? If we go and say, well, I can't look at that because of the law of attraction, I don't want to draw in fear. Well, you need to understand the source of where that idea came from. And there may be teachers that don't know the origins, just know that that's worked for them, and they don't really understand how limiting that is to the greater role of karma and what we're here to do. And I'll say one last thing is that our karma, I believe right now, is to bring light to what's going on so that we can illuminate the entire planet in love, in unity, in solidarity, and bring in the 5D. If we only focused on the law of attraction and we don't look at the dark, I'm not sure we're going to get there. Now, I could be wrong. Again, there's a lot of timelines. I'm just saying I think it's more of a complete holistic awareness, enlightenment, unfoldment, be in knowledge of everything, hold in your heart what is dear, and then take, do your revocation and then take action in love.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
if we choose to not acknowledge the things that make us afraid, it's feeding the agenda of those who don't want us to notice the things that are happening that would be bad, or not for the highest good of humanity.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it feeds their agenda. Again, it's like, what is it feeding? What is the purpose of this? How is it serving you? How is it not serving you?
And how has that worked out so far?
Exactly.
Yeah, not looking, not questioning.
Not acknowledging. Right. As soon as we turn our direction, turn our gaze in another direction, say, nope, that's not real. That's not happening.
I know.
We're letting it happen. We're allowing it.
Yeah.
And so at what point do we say, okay, we're taking our power back. We see it. We're choosing to do something about that so it doesn't continue, and doing it in a loving way.
I've seen, there's some amazing videos. There was a video of a former military man, and he was also an MD. I don't know if you saw it. I think it was in Sacramento or somewhere, where he told the police officers, I mean, he spoke from the heart. I gotta send it to y'all. It was amazing. If y'all could get to interview this guy. But he basically, there was a protest at, I think, Sacramento, which is where I think the Governor Newsom's offices are. And it was a peaceful protest. The police started coming in closer and closer and closer, and you could tell like something was going to happen. And this guy grabbed the microphone, and he just was like talking with them. And he said, this is gut check time, guys. He said, you're going to go home to your kids, to your little boy and your little girl, and you're going to have to look at them in the face. If they ask you, what did you do today, Daddy? And you have to, no matter what you tell them, you pounded some lady's face in because she was protesting so she could open her hair salon. You stepped on some old man's head because he got too close to you. You got to do a gut check. And he said, in the military, there were times that you get orders, and that those orders are not valid orders. Those orders are against, codes of conduct, and you decline that order. He said, all of you have got to ask that question. It was an incredible thing. And you saw them, they started getting closer. And then he's like, you know what? He's like, if you guys want to take those helmets off, we can have a cigar, we can talk and whatever. And then it was amazing because he said, I love you guys. I know you're good people like me. We're all one. And he was tough with them, but then he was loving. And you saw them start to back up. You saw them start to back up. You saw some of them take their helmet off. It was the most riveting 10, 15 minutes where if we connect into people from the heart, humanity, whatever side they're on, people know deep down what's the right thing to do. And I think this is happening a lot. I think people are realizing more and more that it is totally possible. And, I'm not calling for revolution or anything, but I'm saying without the people just following orders, if those orders aren't right, if they don't serve others, if they're more service to self and control and those sorts of things, without those people enforcing the orders, there's no power. There's no power. It's like, what are you going to do? Right. Some little old guy, and there's millions of people we're not going to hurt you, but we're in love. And we think that what you're doing is not right, and you're going to have to end this. I'm sorry. And we're going to just kind of contain you for a little while here. You'll be safe. And we're done with it. We're taking away your little play pieces. And now you go sit over there, and we're billions of people. And that's, we have to get that awareness. Just like cows, unfortunately, that are in a pen have to realize that if any one of them just push the gate, push the fence post, push the board, it's going to snap. We've got to get that way. And that is getting proactive in this, activating the ascension, grounding it in, taking action, and doing it in love, not fear, not anger, not hurting. That's none of that energy is only going to feed it. Actually, that will feed what these energies actually grow on. They will constrict when we act in love, but it's a love with self-respect and honor to self, not a angry fight back and all that, because that's going to actually just create more of that loose energy that feeds all of these beings feeding on all the fear and frenzy. Very different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can't continue if we stand up. Yeah.
Yes. So tell us what now we're pre-recording this for June 7th. That's when it's going to play.
Okay, cool.
And we'd like to know what you're going to do the rest of June. Like, what is coming up on your programs, and what are you? Have you got any more summits, or what are you doing? And how
Well,
can
I have a new program I released this year that I'm really excited about. It's a monthly program that I basically mentor people through finding their soul genius, and it's called the Soul Genius Circle, and it's about really connecting in and living your soul genius. It's very reasonable. I mean, it ends up being something like maybe $300-400 a year. It's not much. It's not some huge thing. I mean, it's people pay monthly, but I mentor them, and I say, like, you can make back what you spend in a year probably just doing one thing that you've really wanted to do and figuring out how to do it. It'll make that much of a difference. But and that is really aligned to living your soul genius, because I believe, kind of like we're doing in this process, there's different steps to doing this. There's the healing aspect of healing where maybe you felt there was imbalances. Then you have to really begin to understand like what you're here to do and what is your purpose. I call it the Earth mission. We all have it. Y'all are obviously living yours. But once we heal the imbalance and the suffering, then we can see our Earth mission, right? And our Earth mission is something we're called to do. It's like what we are meant to do. And then we align to abundance. We figure out what is it that makes us happy. And if that's having more friends and neighbors, we're going to align to that. It means we need more abundance in terms of money or cash flow to do more. We show you how to align to that, whatever it is. And then the last thing is legacy. I mean, I think a lot of people don't really think about, like, what do I want to be remembered for? What is it I really want to do? And so the Soul Genius Circle is about going through that circle of heal, Earth mission, align to abundance, and live your legacy. And so we go through those 4 areas. You know what they are when we're done. We do a lot of energy work. We do a lot of practical stuff too that you need to know in the 3rd dimensional realm. And so I just launched that, and it's been going really well. If people want to, there's a free webinar where I talk about my whole experience, having a motorcycle accident, seeing this sacred geometry symbol, and then getting the downloads to this infinite fractal pattern that we are, and how we have our own sort of fractal sacred geometry that is part of what we're here to do, and how we activate this. It spirals outward with its own natural recurring pattern. It becomes a life of its own. So people can check that out. It's at soulgeniuscircle.com, and there's a webinar there. So soulgeniuscircle.com. And then UWealth Revolution is still going on, and we've got, of course, great guests and daily intention circles. We're asking a lot of people what's going on. We're getting a lot of interesting energy work around what's happening, and also just energy work to make your life better. So it's going to be a busy summer. Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Very exciting.
Yeah, we kind of figure, we were telling Tyler and Aaron that we're the pink pill. We're not the red pill here. We're the pink
I
pill.
love that.
We're the pink pill. So, just soft.
Yeah, and it needs to be solved. Hopefully I wasn't too
No,
abrupt, but it's, but yeah, y'all are the pink pill, and people can take or leave, whatever. And we're not associated. It's not my identity to be a disclosure guy. I would rather everything be out in the open and be done. I would just I don't want to disclose anything. I would rather everybody know the truth, and we deal with it, and we clean up what we need to. And then we move on. We have a collective trauma. We have a collective crying. We have a collective dark night of the human soul. And then we move on. And we never make the mistake again.
Absolutely.
I would, and just be done. It'd be great. So.
Absolutely. Let's get there. Let's get this, let's do it. It's
gonna
be uncomfortable. It's okay to be uncomfortable. We need to stop resisting being uncomfortable, or, just push through. Fear isn't the enemy. It's how we use it. It's a catalyst for growth. It's a catalyst for change. It's not something to run from or hide from or pretend doesn't exist. It leads to greater love. Right.
It's not going to be sweet.
Yeah.
Birth is sweet.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to ask y'all. So what are y'all thinking? Could I ask each of you? Because I haven't talked to y'all in a while. I'm curious. I know you're all very smart, enlightened beings. What would be like? I don't know. Do each of you want to kind of give me a little bit of a rundown of what you think's happening, and maybe what we can do, or where things might go? I'm curious because I need to know too. So what do y'all think?
Well, I'll start off.
Okay.
I'm in Canada here, and so I think perhaps it may or may not have been a planned pandemic, and I think it's gone way beyond everyone's expectations and control. So I think they thought they were going to be able to control what was going to happen, but we didn't all riot in the streets. We didn't all go crazy. We didn't do things like they thought we would. I think we really like you would have thought most people would have rioted or panicked or just done something when you're all locked down, but we all behave like for the most part. And I think maybe the collective, or maybe whoever's in charge, or whoever thought they were in charge, thought they were going to have a chance to really put the screws to us, because we were all panicking in the streets and causing total chaos. And the dark forces thought with that total chaos they'd be able to feed on even more. But I think they got a little bit of a different thing going on than they thought. That's where my take is. It's not panic in the streets. It's a controlled kind of thing. Yeah, like it's like the whole world are acting like Canadians. Like honestly, to be quite truthful, they're behaving, and they're not panicking, and they're not taking out their guns and shooting up places and doing stuff that you might think would happen. Really,
Yeah.
Right.
for the most part. People aren't going wild and crazy, I mean, except for the toilet paper thing, but that's all.
Yeah, exactly. Now, are they lifting things a little bit, or what is the verdict on?
Yeah, we're depending on where you are. I mean, we're going by statistics and how bad. Ontario and Quebec have got the highest number of cases, so we're a slower come out. But
Okay.
more or less, like school's pretty much done in Ontario until next September. But I think we're all looking at everybody else and going back 2 weeks on their timeline, because we're 2 weeks behind everybody, like everybody else over in North America, and sort of looking at and seeing what worked and what didn't work, and kind of going from there. Everybody's just guessing, like everybody else. And I know, like, a lot of the fear mongers are throwing up the Spanish flu, but the big second wave. Now we've come through the first wave. We haven't. Now here's the wait for the second.
Oh, I've heard about the third wave too. That was on CNN. Oh, there's a third wave.
Yep.
But the Spanish flu happened in the 1900s, when we had no infection control, and we had no antibiotics, and we had nothing of those things. So, you're trying to compare apples and oranges. Like, you're trying to compare, like, tuberculosis and smallpox in the first days of the new world, compared to what we're getting now. So, we have to kind of just keep it level. Like I said, you just gotta use your common sense.
Yeah.
Use common sense.
I agree. Well, good. Well, that's good.
Not feed the fear. That's the way I'm. So.
Don't feed the loosh. Stop feeding the loosh, people.
Stop feeding the loosh. Yeah. Stop feeding the loosh. So yeah,
exactly.
And people are cooking again. So that was something we never thought that we did.
Yeah.
So people are at home cooking and making family time.
Yeah.
Another unintentional consequence of this, good or bad sometimes, but it's an unintentional con. So.
Yeah. Well, that's good. What about you, Teresa? What's your take, and what's happening where you are? Well, what's your take first, and then.
Okay. Well, when you ask Teresa things, Teresa answers come out, and so I apologize to everybody, but I do believe it was a pandemic. And I do believe that the human collective has chosen, there's different roads to enlightenment, but the collective has chosen enlightenment through pain. And that's why there's more great awakening as the things happen, because then they make us question, then they force us to move into what do we want? we don't want. We want more compassionate action and less control, or, it helps people to decide from there. And then, I guess I forgot the rest, but mainly I think it was, oh yeah, because the Illuma donkey is apparently losing their grip and stuff. It's not the same no more. Nothing after this will ever go back to the same. And so as they're losing their grip, they're still throwing a few things at us. There's this rash going around. There's this, there's that. Everything is so important to them to keep us in the fear. But you know what? We're just not going to keep feeling that fear anymore. We're going to go ahead, and more of us are starting to wake up. And it's not just us. The children that are being born now, they are being born more fully awakened. They're not having all the veils that we all grew up with. You know what I mean? So two ways, the awakening of all of us and those coming in fully awake. It's changing. Everything is changing. And where we put our focus on will be the timeline that we get to go on, whether we have to vaccinate or not, or whatever. And as far as what I know is going on in Tennessee, things are opening up more. I'm seeing more cars at the churches. I'm seeing people back in restaurants again. So things are starting to open up a little more.
Yeah, I think you're right about the choice for the timeline. I mean, I heard from a few people that we're going to get there to light, but whether it takes like massive pain, like you said, that's kind of the question. Right. Are we going to get there? I mean, because the ball being held underwater by somebody, the person holding down the ball does not want to escape and become like free out of the water as much as the ball that's being held down. That energy is always stronger than the being pressing down on the ball. So we have to remember that we're going to get into the light. We're going to move into this new earth at some point. Like you said, are we going to take the super like painful rocky path, or do we just finally like shrug off this thing? Like I remember this meme where there was all these, like, it was always like the rich old men, right? That's like the ones that control the world. That's the idea, right? And so it's all, and it's not necessarily true, but it's like all these rich old guys were playing like on this big chess game, and then there's all these people who are like kneeling down with their backs flat, on their hands and knees, and the chessboard is on their backs. And the question is like, when do we stand up and then throw all of their little pieces on the floor? And then the old men can't play the game anymore, right? It's like Mr. Burns. When you found Mr. Burns, he's like, once you get to his lair and past all the stuff, he's just some frail little 90-pound dude that's like, don't hurt me. And you're like, okay, no, you're done. It's it, in love, you're done. And that's kind of, when are we going to realize that? Come on. So what about you, Bex?
All right. So it's hard to put it all into words because there's so much. But I think that recognizing that we've been the greatest resource that they've been using, we've been what they needed to keep running things. It's our, our ignorance, it's consumerism, it's all these systems that need to be broken down. And the only way they can break things down now, the white hats can break things down, the good guys, if you will, is to, kind of shut everything down so that they can go deep into this and start taking down the people in power, that are feeding this agenda of the dark, the dark entities, the dark energies that are using humans as resources. Our energy and our time are the most important resources we have. And so if they can distract us with, our iPhones and everything else, what are we going to do? We're not going to fight anything. We're not going to do anything. We're just going to exist, and this is about us breaking free of that paradigm of just existing and starting to really consciously create our reality. So while we're doing this, while we're coming into this awakening and realizing and having more of that internal time, because what else are we going to do when everything's shut down? It gives us the opportunity to really step into our power. So the people that are, fighting for us, as opposed to the people who are trying to keep us dumbed down, they're going through and they're breaking down the systems. And it's uncomfortable. And it looks like destruction in a way that we don't understand. Our human minds can't comprehend what's really happening right now. There's so much more going on behind the scenes. So we keep saying the veil's thinning. Well, guess what, guys? The veil's gone. Like, it's done. Okay, so this is what we asked for. This is what we wanted. We wanted disclosure.
We did.
So let's look at it. Let's look at this and say, okay, this is what's been going on. Human trafficking is a real issue. It's being broken down now. It's being stopped. Drug trafficking's been an issue. That's being stopped. In so many ways. It may not be completely done, but the biggest points where it's been happening are being stopped. We should be celebrating. We shouldn't be saying, no, that's not what's happening in this world. Let's look at it. Okay. It sucks. It's uncomfortable. It's heartbreaking. It's gut wrenching. Okay. Let's heal. Okay. Let's do something good with it. Let's, take something really bad and painful and hard and do something good with it. That's our job. So, there's a lot of happening, and this was the, grand attempt at trying to keep us, as the sheep, keep us quiet, keep us dumb, keep us, ignorant. And we're not following that timeline. And that's where it's like, okay, so let's keep feeding fear. But we're saying, no, fear doesn't, we don't resonate with that anymore. Like whatever you're trying to tell us, we know. This is what you said was going to happen. This is what's really happening. We've got it, enough. And people who are starting to wake up, like it's hard sometimes because you see people who are enlightened, awakened, and they're struggling with accepting what's going on, So we hold space for them. Okay, we all have our own traumas to heal. We all have our own perceptions. Everything that we see, everything we do is through a perception of our experiences. We're all being stretched really wide right now and expanded in so many ways. It is uncomfortable. It is different. Just sit and breathe in it, and then take steps forward. So that's kind of, and I'm in New Hampshire, and New Hampshire's a live free or die state. So.
Wow. I like that. Yeah. Like Texas, right? Where.
So we're kind of like, it was like a soft stay-at-home order and an opening phase 1, which of course they're opening golf courses and paintball ranges. And I'm like, those are priorities for level 1. Okay.
That's fine.
This is all individual stuff, right? Like here we weren't allowed to go to the cottages, and then they found out the premier was going to his cottage. Oh, I guess you can all go to the cottage now.
Yeah. I do want to say to people, like, if you are in a state that when you look at this, it doesn't look like they are holding the sovereignty or the rights of the individual at a high place. One of the things I want to say is that we've been duped in sort of spirituality to believe that you have to put the rights of the collective over the individual, right? So it's like either or. So when you think about like a one world government type of Agenda 21 or Agenda 2030 or whatever it is, that like to fix everything, the rights of the individual have to basically merge with the state. And so we have to take that away because we have to do this or that. And I don't believe that's 5D. And there used to be years ago, I know a lot of people that believed that all of that was like higher dimension. Oh, we get one world government. We won't have wars. We won't have fights. We won't have borders. It'll be great. But that's fantastic if everybody was at 5D and everybody was enlightened. We could trust that those people who are running that giant thing would be purely service to others and not go into the side of service to self. Because once they do, the whole world is like in trouble and there's no way out, right? So we got to be wary of that. And that's where, if you are in a state right now, I think that is moving into service to self and agendas that are control agendas, you may want to move. You may not want to be there if this turbulence of this ascension type energy continues, which it looks like it will. Those states that are not aligned, those people, those countries are not aligned to service to others versus service to self, there's going to be more turbulence because they're like the Model T structurally that's going to have to start going 100 miles an hour, and things are going to start breaking off because they're going to hold on to that power structure, to that power grid that's all about self, and control. And that's not what this is about. So be thinking about, like, I've got a friend that he's in California. He's probably going to want to move to Arizona. I'm in Texas. I mean, we were our own country for a while. We've got like, okay, we're Americans and patriots, and then we're Texans. I'm not sure which comes first. I don't think people want to find out because, there's some pretty tough Texans out there. And Abbott was one of the first ones, along with Florida, that was like, yeah, we're going to open up. So I at least feel like you want to be in those places that value individual liberty and sovereignty. Right. And the real horrible trick that they've played, or whoever sort of has this like black, white, myopic reality that there's only two flavors of ice cream in the world, is they've made people believe that you can either have individual sovereignty or collectivism. Mm-hmm. And this is why you're like, oh, they'll say like, oh, this is really bad because there's all these nationalists and they're bad and nationalism is terrible. Nationalism is a group of people saying, this is what I choose for me and my family and our local community. And these are our values. We're not against people. It's just, we want to be this way. Right. So they've made us believe that. That's not necessarily true. And so we can have collective love for everybody, and also individual rights. Mm-hmm. And if you value the individual, if you value the rights of the individual, you will have more collective love. You'll have more love for the collective because you're treating each individual as something unique. At UL Revolution, I can love everybody because they're an amazing individual. And my individual love for every single person, or value for every person's gifts, creates a community and world where that collective is valued. If we take away the rights and the value of that individual makes up a collective. If you strip them of all their rights, you don't automatically get a collective that's got a lot of rights because you've taken all the rights away from the individuals. Right. And that's the Faustian bargain. That's the trap. So if you're in a state that's not like that, just think about it. And I say, there's a new flavor on the planet. And this also, I'll say real quick, this ties into spiral dynamics. If you look up the work of spiral dynamics, you see that there's a level of consciousness that's called yellow consciousness. Yellow consciousness encompasses much of this frequency, much of this. And then there's turquoise and coral and higher levels of awareness that encompass all of the things we're talking about. It's just a flavor. It's like a flavor of ice cream in a world where people are only given chocolate and vanilla, and that's all they can see. And then someone comes along and says, hey, I've got strawberry, blackberry twist right here in the middle. And everyone's like, really? We can have that? Mm-hmm. Okay. Oh, this works. That's where we're at. So reject that, and accept and choose what we want to create, because we can.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yay.
Oh, thanks for. I didn't know if that was like the chair fall or she was clapping. Oh, she's been clapping all along. I was like, what did I do?
It is almost a standing ovation.
Oh, yeah. Thanks.
So I guess we're going to have to come to an end. Yep. But
we got that question.
The input. Yeah, you got that question, Bex, and we'll tell who won in the comments, because this is pre-recorded. So, Sophia.
But make sure you share this out, because this is been an awesome hour and a half. Like, hell yeah. Thank you so much, Darius, for hanging out with us. And
I loved it.
I'm inspired.
Absolutely. Like, it's
y'all
just
inspired me. Yeah. No, y'all inspire me. Thank you. So you want to know the song?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm the worst at this. If y'all know Jared Hewitt, he always makes me do this on the calls. Like, what song? So I got Sweet Emotion by Aerosmith. I'm going to feel into why. I think because I was always a person who talked about things that nobody cared about, wore all the things that nobody weared, and just kind of marked to beat to a different drum. Mm-hmm. And I've always been very emotional. I could feel. I don't like to see bugs get squashed. I don't like to see animals get hurt. I don't like to see any of that. And that's just, I think that Sweet Emotion has guided my life. And that, I don't know, that song just kind of rings into my mind. Yeah. So that would be maybe the song. Now, I don't know if that's what Aerosmith meant, so don't read into that too deep. That's just mine, and I don't know what they're involved in. I've seen pictures where people are like, oh, he was with the Aerosmith guy. He's bad. I don't know nothing. I'm just saying, from when I heard this song in the 80s, that's what I remember with the lyrics, and that's, and it has a good beat. So
yeah.
And you can dance to it. Yeah.
It's a classic.
Yeah.
It's a classic. Yeah. At least at this level. But I appreciate all of y'all. Thanks for doing this. And this is the Pink Pill, and it's a beautiful place. And I feel so safe with y'all. And I think people that come here, you've got three beautiful souls and goddesses that just exude love, each in their own way. You know, some like Bex, you're a little bit more like, this is it. And Rhonda, she's more like this, and Teresa's more like this. So it's a beautiful place, and you feel very nurtured and warm and connected. So I love it. I love what y'all are doing. It's very special and it's unlike anything else out there. So I really appreciate it. I feel very, very nurtured and safe and good. So thanks for giving this to me tonight.
Thank you.
We're very honored for you to be.
Absolutely.
You honor us with your presence. Let's just put it that way.
And same with y'all.
Yeah.
All right.
Keep up the good work.
Yeah.
Thanks. Y'all too.
We'll
That's
see
That's all
you
we
again.
can do, right? It's our life's work. Like, what else are we gonna do?
Just keep showing up.
We'll be seeing you again. I'm
Yes.
gonna hit the
Yes.
end button, but we'll chat.
Yeah. Sounds good. I'll be here. I'm staying on.
Good.